let's talk about the hard decision of when to pivot or not, right? That's probably the number one questions our startups have for us, right? When do you know that it's the right time to drastically change what you're working on?
For me, it's a leaky bucket. Like when you launch an MVP, users come, they use a product, they don't like it, and they leave. And no matter how many users you recruit, they just keep leaving. And I think that's a leaky bucket problem. So that's one way of identifying whether or not you should pivot.
So retention that trends to zero.
That's right.
What about B2B though, where it's harder to get usage from
B2B?
What other signals could you look at to understand this is not worth pursuing?
I'd say for B2B, it's almost similar. Like, you can get pretty easily 50 people to test B2B software in different companies. And if you're not solving a problem, then they're not gonna come back, right? The magic moment is that they use the software, they're like, hey, I need this feature. Or like, this isn't working quite well, but can you do this for me? If you're getting like feedback that is positive, it's negative but positive, right? Like, hey, I need you to fix this, but I could see it trending this way. I do think there's an element of success there. Ultimately, it just depends on getting those 50 to 100 users to test out and get that feedback loop.
I think more from the perspective of the person rather than the product. So if the founders, as people, they are no longer energized to work on that thing, they should definitely pivot. Energy is the most important. Like excitement, energy, intellectual curiosity about that particular problem is the driving force. If you lose that energy, pivot.
There's also an element of founder market fit, right? So the founder has to be excited about the product. That gives them the passion that you mentioned to go out and solve that problem. Because Pump and others are becoming very, very successful, you see a lot of founders within Alliance or outside of the Alliance that are pivoting to doing something in that nature. And it turns out these founders have no founder market fit in the area of like building speculative products.
Oh yeah, we've seen a lot of those.
And you see a lot of that.
Founders who are destined to be enterprise, B2B, SaaS salespeople trying to shill tokens to degens. It's so cringe.
I just think that's what the market expects from them.
Oh,
Actually,
no.
they think sometimes that's what Alliance expects from them, and we're like, no.
I'm like, you need to pivot.
Pivot right back.
You need to pivot.
Do you know any founders who thought about pivoting for a really long time, stuck it through, and succeeded? Where they were just like, God, I should pivot, and they were like, no, keep going, and then they made it to the other side?
So a lot of the founders that were building on Solana during the last bear market, they had to persevere, right?
Mm-hmm. That's true.
But that's a different type of perseverance, right? I think that's more of a market, like external public markets.
Yeah, but the sentiment was very negative, and you had to have conviction that this is the right chain to build on.
Yeah, well, it makes sense, right? When the stressor is macro conditions, that doesn't mean it's time to pivot. In the same way that the stressor is I've lost my appetite for this vertical, or my users are churning out because they don't like the product. It's like, no, the whole market's depressed. It's not you.
Yeah,
that's very different.